everyone, and welcome to Sidereal Insights Astro Update for May 20th, 2019. Every 2 weeks here on the broadcast, we explore the astrology of the current planetary transits across the heavens from a Western sidereal perspective. If you need to look up your sidereal sign placements, we have a easy online calculator you can use for free at MystickPhysick.com. And if you'll give me just one moment, I will post the link for that in the comments in case you need to look up your chart for today's broadcast. I'm 𝗦𝗱𝗲. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick Physick Astrology, and I use Western sidereal astrology in my practice to help you kind of reconnect with your soul purpose and remember why you came to begin with. Thanks for joining me today. Let's see, I think we have the broadcast here. Let's get you this link to the calculator in case you need it. Oh, let's turn on our keyboard. I have a cat that levitates to my keyboard, and so I try and keep it turned off when I'm away from my desk because he's been known to take posting into his own hands, shall we say. All right. Here we go. I think we just about got it. And there. That looks like it's the link. Thank you for joining me. So really my aim with the broadcast is to provide guidance for you on how you can use the energy of the transiting planets to affect your life in a positive way. Use the energy consciously, right, with intention. And so if you get value from this broadcast, or if you know someone that may be interested in watching as we follow along with the current sidereal transits, tag a friend. Feel free to share the broadcast. And you can always follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Today we're talking about the current retrograde activity, how you can use it. That's kind of a recap that's been ongoing since April. We're talking a little bit about tomorrow's Sun-Mercury meetup. And we're also going to be talking a bit about Mars and Mercury being out of bounds together through roughly the middle of June, and how you can kind of tap into that or navigate that, what you need to know about that particular expression of Mars and Mercury and how they might interact together, both being out of bounds. Right now, we have several planets currently in retrograde. We have Jupiter retrograde in sidereal Scorpio. We have Saturn and Pluto retrograde in sidereal Sagittarius. So if it feels like things are kind of moving slowly, or that you're not making progress, or maybe even moving backwards in some areas of life, that can partly explain why. Especially in areas of life ruled by Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in your sidereal natal chart, and in the houses that those planets are transiting. So those are the areas that you really kind of want to be aware of when looking at the retrogrades. With Jupiter's retrograde, this is really an opportunity for a do-over. So consider that there's an opportunity to discover how you can redo something better in some way. With Saturn's retrograde, this is really an opportunity to go back and address an unmet or outstanding obligation or commitment that you might have made. And then with Pluto's retrograde, this is really an opportunity for deep inner healing and transformation. And I actually just recently posted a video about the Pluto retrograde to the website, so feel free, if you want a refresher on how Pluto's retrograde in Sagittarius may work for you, feel free to watch that particular video, and I'll share a link. Once I get off the broadcast, I'll share a link in the comments in case you'd like to watch that. Also, eclipses. Eclipse season is here. So eclipse season is a time of change, right? It can be dramatic change. It's usually permanent change. Often it's unexpected change. And so you'll want to be aware as we move into July, when we have our next two eclipses, and even further into September, how these particular eclipses might play out for you. We're within kind of the applying orb of this third set of eclipses in the Gemini Sagittarius series, which culminates in July of next year. And some of you may have received some kind of eclipse related news near the 14th and 15th of May, and again near the 18th of May, as the luminaries transited the degree of the eclipse, the upcoming July eclipse. I believe the July 16th eclipse is what was active on the 14th, 15th, and 18th of May. And this is especially true if you have a planet or point near 29 degrees of a fire or air sign. And so you may want to have a closer look at your chart. And keep in mind too, there's more news from this particular series coming as we move through the coming months, and that's going to serve to help move those of us who are affected by these eclipses further into the process of change. And so you may want to catch our eclipse I think it's the 2019 eclipses critical dates and degrees video that we just posted, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago tops. Where I get more specifically into the dates and degrees that are going to be active as we move through the summer months here in North America, winter months in South America, or South America, Southern Hemisphere, right? So feel free to watch that video and just kind of keep it handy, as you may need to kind of refresh your understanding of the eclipse experiences as we move through these months, because you may see the themes come up even repeatedly as we move through this July eclipse season. Right now we have the sun in Sidereal Taurus. So sun moved into Sidereal Taurus just a few days ago, May 15th. Annual tour of the sign of the bull. This is a time when our need for security can take precedence. We might hesitate to venture out of established comfort zones, right, into new and unfamiliar territory or experiences. It's also, though, a good time to really be in touch with what's important to you on a very fundamental level. So even if you're not necessarily interested in exploring outside of your comfort zones, take some time to really get in touch with and spend time doing things that make you feel good, things that bring you pleasure, okay? We have Mars right now in Gemini. Mars entered Gemini on the 8th of May. And this is really, brings a surge of energy and activity to the part of the chart where you find Gemini in your natal chart. And this energy surge basically kind of begins as he moves in like a 2-ish year-long wave of energy where you can begin something in your Gemini house and capitalize on Mars's support here for activity, for initiative, for moving things forward and gaining momentum, that you might not have another opportunity of this nature in your Gemini house for another 2 years or so till he comes back around. Okay, so use this time while he's here to gain as much momentum as you can. So Mars is going to be in Gemini for about 6 weeks. Also know that this can kind of make us restless and fidgety and anxious. And so plan for ways that you can channel that energy into physical activity or giving your hands something to do. It can also be a good time if you've been thinking about doing some sort of writing or active kind of communication or having a teaching or educational learning experience. You can begin something like that during the 6 weeks as well. Okay, now Mars is going to be in Gemini until right around June 23rd. So you have several weeks where you can really kind of leverage that added energy in your Gemini house. The one thing you'll want to remember, though, is that Mars is out of bounds right now, right? And Mars, like all the planets, act up when they go out of bounds. They misbehave, if you want to call it that. They behave in ways that we wouldn't normally consider acceptable. That's how we express them in our behavior, I guess is what I should say. That began on the 20th of April, and Mars will be out of bounds until mid-June. And so what that does is it brings out his best and worst qualities in all of us. And so you'll want to keep that in mind and be cognizant of it, but also be cognizant of the fact that on the 26th, Mercury is going to join him. And Mercury out of bounds expresses in a little bit different way. Mars can make us more headstrong, more rash, more impulsive, but also braver, more courageous. We have much more drive and initiative towards accomplishing our own goals and ends when Mars is out of bounds. When Mercury is out of bounds, the expression is a little bit different. We tend to be better at out-of-the-box thinking, new and creative ideas and new and creative ways of addressing problem solving when Mercury is out of bounds. However, we can tend to misconstrue other people's words. We can read into what someone else is saying and maybe take away meanings that they didn't intend. And we also can become really attached to narratives, and that can be the stories that we tell about our own life or the stories that we tell about the world that we live in, right? And so be aware that these extreme ways of thinking and extreme ways of acting and reacting can be working together when Mars and Mercury are both out of bounds, and so they can kind of compound each other. And so I really strongly encourage you, practice patience, practice forgiveness, cultivate compassion, practice forgiving and forgetting. These are all important behaviors because, like I said, we can be a lot more self-centered, a lot more impulsive. We can overreact potentially in overly aggressive or violent ways, potentially, with the Mars expression. And then with Mercury, we can overreact to what we think people are saying to us. And so be clear, I would say, especially through mid-June. Mercury will be out of bounds through the 17th of June. Mars will be out of bounds through the 12th of June, so within days of each other. But with Mercury out of bounds, it's really important to make the effort to be fully present in your interactions with other people, to make the effort to fully understand what the other person wants to communicate to you, and to make sure that you understand it clearly without projecting your own narrative and your own motivations into what is being said to you, okay? So that's kind of a delicate transit, but it also has a lot of really great potential for bringing out just the best and brightest in all of us as human beings. So try and tap into that if you can, because that's really the best way to integrate the out of bounds expressions of Mars and Mercury. We have Venus in Aries right now, and this is kind of interesting because she just came through Pisces, where she's in exaltation, and she moves into Aries, where she's in her sign of detriment. And so this is kind of a full shift in behavior and in expression in how Venus can express herself. When she's in Aries, we're much more prone to be willing to self-sacrifice, right? We're willing to sacrifice our own wants and needs, our own desires for the greater good, potentially, or for other people, or for a higher purpose, right? But when she moves into Aries, our own needs and wants take precedence, and it's almost a demand that you can't ignore, right? And so we're much more inclined to be focused on what we want, rather than what other people want, and we may not be considerate of what other people want when we're pursuing our own desires when Venus is in Aries. So just keep that in mind as well as we navigate that. She's not going to be in Aries for very long. She'll move into Taurus June 4th, so right early next month, and she's in her own rulership in Taurus, and so we're going to see another major shift in how Venus expresses very quickly. We just came through a full moon in Scorpio, when Mercury entered Taurus, and so what I want to touch on here, partly Mercury's transit, which we'll get to, of transit of Taurus, but the full moon, May 18th, was just a few days ago, and that particular full moon was in Sidereal Scorpio. It was in tropical Scorpio as well, but in Sidereal Scorpio, and this full moon really carried a lot of potential to transform the way we understand events or circumstances in the area of life represented by Scorpio in the natal chart. This is a time when there can be a shifting of power dynamics, but also a shifting in how we communicate. And with Venus and Uranus in conjunction, as the moon is transiting Taurus, right, or as the sun is in Taurus, right, what we have wrapped up in this full moon is a really beautiful potential for just unexpected beauty to appear in life. Just moments of spontaneous joy, and meetings or discussions that take place around this full moon could bear unexpected fruit in some way. So keep an eye on the dynamics that happen in the wake of this full moon. And remember that it's not too late to do your full moon releasing practice if you are moved to do a full moon releasing practice. I'll share a link for the practice in the comments, and that way if you still would like to do it, you have 10 days after the new or full moon to do your lunar practice. And so you can still capitalize on this really kind of a beautiful full moon is what this one has turned out to be, it seems like, for a lot of people. But Mercury moved into Taurus the same day as the full moon, right? And so that shift of Mercury into Taurus is really a time when you can focus on articulating what's most important to you, right? You can spend time getting clear on your priorities and take a moment to consider whether your priorities have changed or not. So this particular energy, you can work with it through June 2nd when Mercury will move into Gemini, and then that's a little bit more active way of tapping into what you discover about yourself and about what's important to you and your own priorities while Mercury is here in Taurus. So give that some thought. That's a good way to just kind of use Mercury's regular tour of Taurus to re-examine your priorities and make sure you're still headed the direction you want to be headed. Tomorrow we have the Sun conjoining Mercury. So this is kind of an important day for certain folks. They're going to meet up in Taurus. Readers with Gemini or Virgo sun or rising sign may want to take note, or watchers, I guess I should say. You could find yourself in the spotlight or at the center of attention in some way. And so if you need to make an impression, this is a day that you can do it. But more generally, we might, because we're so close with Mercury approaching out of bounds, we might find ourselves caught up in a narrative around personal possessions, okay? Or attached to stories that we've woven around our belongings, or attached to stories that we've woven around our own sense of self-worth, okay? And where Mercury out of bounds really can make us prone to attaching to those stories, I would invite you to use these next few days before he does move out of bounds, while Mercury's in Taurus, to really get clear about what is the story that you want to be telling. What's the experience that you would like to have? What's the ideal outcome for you, whatever it is you're considering? And then really get clear about what's the story that you want to be living. And that way, as Mercury moves out of bounds, if you're going to become attached to a story, it's a story that you actually want to manifest, and it's a story that actually reflects your own heartfelt values and what's really important to you and the direction that you're headed in life, okay? And so on this point, for the Sun-Mercury conjunction, look to 5 degrees Taurus on your natal chart for clues as to how this can affect you. If you are a Leo Sun or Leo Rising, you'll want to take note too. The Sun, of course, is your ruler, and this conjunction is going to activate your solar 10th house, right? So that's professional needs, career needs, potentially goals, plans, ambitions. This is an opportunity where you might find yourself in a position to really clearly communicate your professional needs, your professional goals, and that's always the first step in getting what you want, right? So keep that in mind if you need a way to tap into tomorrow's conjunction. If you need to make a presentation, it's an excellent time to do that. You can speak with authority, your words can carry weight and influence, and you can present yourself in a way that people find pleasant and attractive. And so it's definitely a day that there's power for you to leverage if that's you. We have, as I was just speaking earlier, Mercury out of bounds. That's one of our final points for today's broadcast, and we touched on this a little bit, so I just want to make sure that there's not anything we have left out of our discussion. Mercury goes out of bounds, like I said, on the 26th. It'll be out of bounds until the 17th. This is really great for innovative thinking, right? This is any field that requires skill in analysis, problem solving, communication, but like I said, the flip side is it's really easy to become obsessed with stories, okay, and really easy to misconstrue things and blow things out of proportion. And so just be really careful, be really cognizant as you navigate the next 3 to 4 weeks or so, okay? Also, it's not too late to do your full moon practice, and I have the link right here. So let me pop that in the comments in case you need it. And then I also want to give you a link to the new moon in Aries intention setting practice, the part 1 video. We went more in depth about Mercury and Mars out of bounds together. And so if you want to recap or if you missed that broadcast, just watch part 1 where we talk about that more specifically. And I'll let you know here. That's what. So that should be a short-ish clip that'll go into more detail with a little bit of advice on how you can work with that if you need to. Okay? And then, yeah, if you missed us live for the full moon in Scorpio, definitely hit that broadcast. Like I said, remember you have 10 days after the new or full moon to do your practices. Stay tuned for the June overview and short reports. Those will be coming shortly, probably within the next handful of days. And feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you don't ever miss a broadcast. And thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you again next time.